Welcome, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. This is a presentation of New York City Metro InfraGard Members Alliance, Inc. With us today is Craig Floyd onto the program, and we're going to welcome Greg in just 1 second. Let me just turn down the music just a little bit, and we'll bring Craig. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, Craig, how you doing?
Doing great, Joe. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've got a lot going on. This is a busy month for September of 2011. And we've got you on the full screen right now, Craig. So why don't you give us just a short example of what's going on with your group down in D.C. It sounds like you're heading up a national event down there.
Well, for many years now, since 9/11 first occurred back in 2001, we've been holding a commemorative event at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial to honor the 72 officers who died that day. It was the deadliest day in law enforcement history, and we want all of the nation really to remember that day, never forget those law enforcement heroes who died and all those who risked their lives in service. So what we've done this year is simply expand on this commemorative event. We have invited the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. He'll be with us at a special wreath-laying ceremony to be held on Friday, September 9th. September 11th is on a Sunday this year. We know there will be many events in New York and Pennsylvania and at the Pentagon that weekend, so we thought we'd hold our commemorative event on that Friday before. Included in the event will be a reading of the names of the officers who died on 9/11. All 72 names will be read. We've invited agency representatives from each of the agencies where officers perished on 9/11. And we expect all of them to be represented at the ceremony. Anyone's welcome. It starts at 10 a.m. at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. That's the 400 block of E Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., just a few blocks from the U.S. Capitol. And that's on the Judiciary Square stop on the red line of our subway system here in Washington for anyone interested in attending. The ceremony will probably last about 45 minutes to an hour. Now, the night before, we have a very interesting event planned to delve a little deeper into what happened on 9/11 and the aftermath. We call it Witness to History. It's a series of events that we've been putting on. The first actually occurred a couple months ago. We had Jim Lavelle with us. He was the Dallas police detective who was escorting Lee Harvey Oswald on the day that he was shot and killed by Jack Ruby. That iconic photo of the Dallas police officer in the white hat and white suit. Well, that was Jim Lavelle, and today he's 93 years old, and he was with us just a couple months ago to describe what happened on that fateful day in November of 1963, and also some of the events that preceded it, as well as those that followed. We're expecting to do many more of these Witness to History events. Law enforcement professionals who were involved in historic moments in law enforcement history. And certainly 9/11 is right at the top of the list. One of our darkest days, perhaps ever, in law enforcement history, the darkest day, certainly in terms of fatalities, but also, I think, one of the finest days, maybe the finest day in law enforcement history, to see law enforcement at its very best, risking and sacrificing their lives for innocent people in need. And as one officer told me in New York City soon after, he said those officers were right where they wanted to be, doing exactly what they wanted to be doing on 9/11 when they lost their lives. And there is great comfort in that thought then and now. So the night before our commemorative wreath-laying ceremony, we've invited three very prominent law enforcement leaders who were involved intimately in 9/11. The first is Carl Truscott. He was, with the Secret Service, the head of the Presidential Security Detail on 9/11. He was the one responsible for securing the president after the attacks occurred, knowing full well that we were at war at that moment in time and that the president's life certainly was at risk. And Carl Truscott was in charge of securing the president. We're going to hear from Carl Truscott for the first time publicly about what he did that day and in the days that followed 9/11. He also went on to become head of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and a top leader, certainly within the U.S. Secret Service. So he'll have a very interesting perspective, a very unique perspective on what happened after 9/11 as well in terms of federal law enforcement. We also have Joe Morris. Joe Morris was the highest ranking official in the Port Authority Police Department of New York and New Jersey who survived the attacks on 9/11. You may recall that Fred Marone, who was the superintendent and head of the Port Authority Police Department of New York and New Jersey on 9/11, he was actually killed in the attacks. He went into those burning buildings, tried to rescue innocent people along with his officers, and when the towers collapsed, Fred Marone died that fateful day. But it was Joe Morris who subsequently succeeded Fred Marone as head of the Port Authority Police Department. He was the one in charge of the rescue efforts immediately following the attacks. And I met with Joe Morris just a week after the attacks. He was sitting in a lonely trailer in Ground Zero and had a poignant conversation with him. He showed me a map, in fact, of where they had 37 red marks on that map. And he explained that that was the last known location of each of the 37 Port Authority officers who died on 9/11. I'll never forget that conversation, and Joe has become a good friend of ours and a great supporter, and he'll be with us for the Witness to History event as well. And then the third person that we have joining us on 9/11 Witness to History is Richard Keevil. Rich Keevil was the head of the Virginia State Police Barracks right near the Pentagon when the attacks occurred. He went on to become chief of the Pentagon Police Department. And Rick Keevil is someone that has just a unique perspective. He was not only in charge of the rescue operation when the attacks occurred, but he also went on to take over the security for the Pentagon in the years that followed. So he's been a great friend as well, and he'll offer his perspective of what happened at the Pentagon on that fateful day and how we've secured it in the days that followed. There may be a couple other additions to that panel, but this will be the evening before September 8th. It'll be held here at the Pew Charitable Trust building that we house the Memorial Fund headquarters. That's 901 E Street Northwest. It is a ticketed event. Limited number of people can attend, and we ask anyone interested in attending that event to contact us here at the Washington office at 202-737-3400. And we'll be glad to get them more details. They can also learn more about the event on our website at www.lawmemorial.org. Just the 9/11 commemorative events. I'll also add, Joe, a couple other events that are coming up in the fall. In October, one is our 20th anniversary gala. This is an event to honor the 20th anniversary of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. It was dedicated on October 15, 1991 by former President Bush, 41. And I know he's made a video to kind of remember that day that he was so much a vital part of. And he'll be with us that evening through that video salute. And we've got hundreds of others that will be joining us that evening. It will be a fundraising event to help benefit the National Law Enforcement Museum. It'll be held at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, just a couple blocks away from the memorial and the Memorial Fund headquarters here in Washington. And anyone interested in attending that event can get more information again from our lawmemorial.org website, or call us here at the office at 202-737-3400. And we'll get you all the information you need. But we're encouraging not only sponsors, corporate sponsors and philanthropists, but also law enforcement officers and surviving family members of officers killed in the line of duty to be with us for this very special celebration of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial dedication 20 years ago. That again is Wednesday, October 12th. And then on Sunday, October 16th, continuing with this week-long celebration of the memorial's dedication, we're going to hold our inaugural Ride and Run to Remember. This is a very special event that we're putting on to help raise money to support the Memorial Fund, but just as importantly, to raise public awareness about the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers in this country of ours. It'll be held here in the nation's capital, starting at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial for those that will be involved in the 5K run and walk, and that'll begin and end at the memorial. For those that are bicycle enthusiasts, we actually have a metric century bike ride planned that'll start at the National Harbor out in Prince George's County, Maryland, not too far from Washington, D.C. But the bottom line is you can bike up to 62 miles for those that want that particular challenge, or if you're looking for something a little tamer, we have a 31-mile bike ride and a 15-mile bike ride that you can participate in. Again, it's a race, but it's also for those that just want to have a fun ride, if you will. It's a way to raise money for a very good cause. We encourage our registrants to go to their friends, family, relatives to help raise money, get donations, get pledges to support them in this ride or run to remember. And it's a wonderful way, I think, too, to bring the citizens together with law enforcement. One of the problems we have in this country is only 1 out of 5 Americans has any direct contact for a law enforcement officer, and most of those contacts are negative. It's a traffic stop. So that means that fewer than 10% of the American people have any positive interaction with law enforcement. We want to encourage people to get to meet these officers up close and personal. And we think if they have a chance to do that through this ride and run to remember, where officers will be riding their bikes and running right alongside the citizens they serve, that's going to help to strengthen that partnership. And we all realize that public safety is a partnership, that it involves the cooperation, the support, the trust of the community, as well as the officers who serve them. So we're trying to instill a lot of that through this ride and run to remember. It's going to be very similar, if you will, to the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure that has really helped to generate not only millions and millions of dollars for a great cause, but also to bring the public out and engage in a major public awareness campaign on behalf of that particular charitable cause, in this case, the service and sacrifice of America's police officers.
Well, Craig, I certainly appreciate it, and I know you're a busy man because I can hear it. We have some statistics, I know, regarding the fatalities so far this year. Would you mind going over some of those details?
Yes, we always, Joe, focus on the officers who've died in the line of duty during this year. And as you like to say, put a name to the numbers, put a face to the numbers. And so here are the numbers. The numbers are rather tragic and frightening. 125 officers killed in the line of duty already this year, and that's a 20% increase over the same time last year. The numbers have spiked once again. You'll remember last year we saw a 25% increase in the number of fatalities over the year before, and the numbers have gone up even more in 2011. 50 officers have been shot and killed, and that's a 32% increase over the same time last year. Clearly a more cold-blooded, brazen criminal element on the streets of America. And unfortunately, it's our officers that have to deal with those cold-blooded killers. And there was a frightening, kind of a chilling comment made at a recent meeting with a police chief. She said, criminals seem to be more comfortable shooting police officers. And I think we see that very clearly in these numbers. Used to be that the national homicide rate tracked the felonious deaths of officers in this country pretty consistently. And what we're seeing in recent years is while violent crime and homicides in particular have gone down nationwide, the number of officers killed feloniously has actually increased dramatically the last 2 years. So again, criminals seemingly more comfortable shooting police officers. And that's frightening for the safety of all officers across this country. The one glimmer of good news in these numbers is that we've seen a decrease in the number of officers killed in traffic-related incidents. For the first time, really, in about 13 years, the number of firearms-related fatalities is higher than the number of officers killed in traffic-related incidents. And this year, we're seeing about a 12% decline in the number of officers killed in traffic-related incidents, most of them killed in automobile crashes or struck and killed on the side of roadways while outside of their vehicles, or some that have been killed in motorcycle crashes. But thankfully, there's been a slight decrease. We hope that that's going to continue. I think as more and more public attention gets focused on that problem, we're going to see those numbers decline further, I'm hopeful for. In terms of putting names and faces to those fatalities, I can tell you that already this past month we've lost 12 officers in the line of duty, and they include David Dawson III from Greene County, North Carolina Sheriff's Office. He was killed in a single vehicle crash while on patrol. Tina Rambo of the Ocean County, New Jersey Sheriff's Office. She was also killed in an automobile crash. James McCandless of the Rapid City, South Dakota Police Department. He was shot and killed along with another officer, Nick Armstrong, and they were killed while questioning 4 suspicious suspects in a crime. Anthony Rahming from the Memphis, Tennessee Police Department died really of a job-related illness, and we see that too often where the stress of the job sometimes is fatal, and that was the case with Officer Rahming. Jeffrey Settle from the North Carolina Department of Corrections. We have more than 520 correctional officers on the National Memorial. Jeffrey Settle was killed in an automobile crash. Roy Sims, he was killed when his motorcycle collided with a hearse while escorting a funeral procession. Very dangerous circumstance. Most of us take it for granted, but when those motorcycles are trying to halt traffic to let the funeral procession by, can be life-threatening. Nick Armstrong, I mentioned, he was shot and killed, Rapid City, South Dakota, along with Ryan McCandless. Jeremy Henwood of the San Diego, California Police Department, shot and killed while stopped at a traffic light, seemingly an ambush, a brutal assassination of an officer. John Kendall, the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections, another correctional officer killed in the line of duty, died in an automobile crash. Robert Lasso of the Freemansburg Borough Police Department in Pennsylvania, shot and killed while responding to a disturbance call. And we know that disturbance calls are the #1 threat to law enforcement safety. Evan Burns, Caruthersville, Missouri police officer, struck and killed while deploying spike sticks, fleeing felon in a stolen automobile. They got the jump on him, and they were putting out the spike sticks, and then this fleeing felon crashed his car into Evan Burns' car, killing him. And finally, Bart Child from the U.S. Department of Defense, police officer, collapsed and died during a physical agility test. So even during training exercises, it can be potentially life-threatening for a law enforcement professional.
Craig, that is some list, and we'll make sure to put that up and make sure that everybody gets a chance to look at that. Keep us informed as the events for September 11th, draw to completion, and you learn of other details. So we'll be happy to put them out there for you. Excellent.
Appreciate, as always, the time and attention you focus on the work we do here, Joe. And this has been a tough year for law enforcement. Hopefully in the fall, as we have some of these celebratory events, some of these commemorative events, the whole nation will recognize the service and sacrifice of law enforcement in a much different way, and hopefully no longer take our officers and what they do for us for granted.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. You guys are doing great work down there. Just keep up the good work, and we'll be with you come October.
Great. Thanks very much, Joe. Take care.
All right. Bye now.